Welcome to the Politics News Wolf US channel. The tensions continue to rise in the long front line of the Ukrainian-Russian war on Ukrainian soil. Especially with the participation of the soldiers mobilized in the Russian army, the heavy conditions of the war began to be felt in the Russian positions. Soldiers in the Russian army described the land of Ukraine as hell. The war between Ukraine and Russia was the scene of many critical incidents that we have not seen before. The successful performance of the Ukrainian forces carried the war to different processes. The Ukrainian army with its numerous successful attacks caused the Russian forces to lose their elite troops. Over the past 11 months, the Kremlin government has called on the Russian people to support the war in Ukraine with its heavy propaganda. Supported by leaflets, social media posts, radio calls, text messages, and television campaigns. The Kremlin's calls to support the war did not receive much attention. For this reason, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced the partial mobilization decree at the beginning of September. The Russian people were dissatisfied with it and took to the. In addition, Russian men flocked to the border gates to flee Russia. When Kiev government saw that Russian citizens were fleeing from mobilization, it took steps to turn the crisis into an opportunity. The Kiev government has promised to surrender and live in its campaign. Targeting Russian citizens. Kiev's promises had more impact on Russian citizens than the Kremlin's call. This move by Kiev against Moscow was much more humane and logical. The Ukrainian leader, Zelenskyy, called Russian citizens who do not want to be included in the Russian army as part of the mobilization, which literally means I want to live in Russian, had a great impact on the Russian people. The Ukrainian forces aim to increase the participation of the soldiers in the Russian army. In the project through various platforms and physical advertisements, the Ukrainian government is keen to use all the means at its disposal to make the project reach larger audiences. The project implemented by Zelenskyy actively uses both high-tech and low-tech communication channel. For this reason, Ukraine uses channels such as brochures, special business cards, data metrics, and radio broadcasts from drones to front lines. The most different of these communication channels is the artillery systems in the military inventory of the Ukrainian army. While artillery systems were intended to be used to damage rival positions throughout the war, the Ukrainian army added a different dimension to them. Ukrainian artillery units routinely used Vampire multiple launch rocket to fire shells filled with 1,500 leaflets each at Russian positions, and they want to draw attention to the project for the benefit of Russian soldiers. The Kiev government, unlike the Kremlin, wants to give the Russian soldiers a chance to save their lives. The Kiev government came up with a very meaningful slogan for the project in order to attract the attention of the Russian soldiers in the front. The Kiev government drew attention to the events that took place in the Russian army before the project started and drew attention to why the Russian soldiers had to surrender. The slogan used by the Ukrainian forces in the project "I want to live" is exactly as follows. Did you notice that you are not greeted with flowers, but with fire and curses? Did you notice that the commanders fled first? Save your life for yourself and your family. Stop fighting for the passions of others. Contact us. Save your life. The project initiated by the Ukrainian government attracted a great deal of attention when it started. The Kremlin government had to take a precaution against this project. The Kremlin government tried to use its usual censorship method as a solution. Shortly after the project's launch, Russian state bodies block to the "I Want to Live" project from territories controlled by the Russian Federation. However, this effort by the Kremlin government did not work. The Russian people who do not want to fight in Ukraine find a way and gain access to the communication channels of the project. It is estimated that at least 5,200 Russian soldiers have surrendered to Ukraine by these means. So far, the number of Russians accessing the project is around 1.5 million. While interest in this, which was initiated by Zelenskyy, increased, the Ukrainian authorities found a new method to meet all surrender demands. Ukrainian forces accompany Russian citizens who want to surrender with drones on Ukrainian territory and deliver them to the safe zone. A front line stretching for hundreds of kilometers and the lands between trenches. A mine-filled wasteland that is monitored by snipers and subject to near constant bombardment. Pose a great risk to anyone involved in surrender. Just as the Ukrainian army watches the entire front line 24 hours a day, Russian troops follow the front line without hesitation. The effect of unmanned aerial vehicles in the surrender process of Russian soldiers appears at this point. The fact that the Ukrainian forces do not physically participate in the surrender process of the Russian soldiers will eliminate the possibility of casualties of the Ukrainian forces as a result of an attack on them. It is estimated that the surrender of the Russian soldiers by drone occurred by chance. A Russian soldier who applied to surrender to the Ukrainian forces was waiting for them in the eastern Donbas region as a result of a decision made by the Ukrainian authorities. At that moment, the surrender process of the Russian soldier was carried out with the help of an unmanned aerial vehicle. After the Ukrainian authorities decided that the operation was useful, they thought it was an idea that could be developed following the use of unmanned aerial vehicles for this. The Ukrainian General Staff released a training video explaining how Russian soldiers can surrender to a Ukrainian drone. This video prepared by the Ukrainian forces is quite comprehensive. It clearly shows all the stages of the surrender process as a first start. Russian soldiers, whether on Ukrainian or Russian territory, must contact the I Want to Live line and receive the necessary instructions and, after receivable of the instructions and coordinates from the I Want to Live line, the Russian soldier has to reach this specified point on time and wait for the unmanned aerial vehicle. After the UAV arrives in the region, the Russian soldier raises his hands and begins to follow the UAV. The UAV, flying at walking speed, takes the Russian soldier to the position where the Ukrainian soldiers are located. The most important detail in this process is that if the battery of the UAV runs out or fails, the Russian soldier who wants to surrender should wait for the new drone. The newly arrived drone will continue the process from the point where the other drone left off. Ukrainian forces sent surrendered Russian soldiers to war. The most important one of these is in the northeast near Lipetro-Sanko, spokesman of Ukraine's coordination headquarters for the treatment of prisoners of war in the war, pointed out that the completion of the surrender process of Russian soldiers with drones is rather a new process. Yasenko noted that the Ukraine's program is the first one designed to use drones on a large scale as part of a coordinated operation to encourage, surrender. The headquarters where Yasenko is located is home to a large number of surrendered Russian soldiers. The conditions of the surrendered Russian soldiers are better than those of the soldiers in the Russian positions. Among the promises of the Ukrainian forces are the best satisfaction of humanitarian needs, medical support, free advice from international legal organizations, regular communication with relatives. The project ensures the detention of surrendered ministry personnel in accordance with the Geneva Conventions. In addition, the Ukrainian army stated that it will register the surrendered soldiers with the phrase "caught in the wall." This means it shows that when soldiers who choose to surrender and live return to Russia, they are likely to receive the promised payments of the Russian army without being tried for desertion. Ukrainian forces expect higher participation in the Hawk. Due to the recent performance of the Russian army, the interest of the low-spirited Russian soldiers in the project has increased. Andrei Yuzov, spokesperson for the Defense Intelligence Agency of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, stated that more than 1,200,000 people use the information resources in the I Want to Live project for Russian soldiers who do not want to fight the project. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe to our channel to update you with daily information.